Okay, so when you see this can, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Energy, right? Maybe some crazy extreme sports, pulling an all-nighter for school? Well, what if I told you the drink inside that can isn't even Red Bull's main product? That it's really just the tip of the iceberg for a massive media empire.
So let's start with this one simple question. What business is Red Bull really in? Now, I know the answer seems super obvious, but as we're about to find out, that obvious answer barely scratches the surface of one of the most brilliant and kind of sneaky business models on the entire planet.
And yeah, of course, most people would say they sell this, a can of energy drink. It's a functional beverage, a multi-billion-dollar product you can find in almost any country you go to. And look, they wouldn't be wrong, but they wouldn't be telling the whole story either. Not even close. Because what if that can isn't the product at all? What if it's just the funding mechanism? You know, the ticket you buy to get into the main event, which is something much, much bigger. That's the wild idea we're diving into today. All right, let's start by pulling back the curtain on the company itself. See, the genius of its founder, Dietrich Mateschitz, wasn't just coming up with a new kind of drink. No, it was building the entire company on a completely radical idea. And here it is. This is the big secret, the foundation of everything. Red Bull does not make Red Bull. Just let that sink in for a second. The biggest energy drink company in the world doesn't own the factories that make its own drink. And that one single decision? It's the key that unlocks everything else. This brings us to their secret weapon, what's known as the asset-light model. So instead of dumping billions of dollars into factories and machinery and all that logistical stuff, Red Bull just outsources all of it. So what in the world does that let them do? Just look at this breakdown. On the left, you've got your traditional companies like a Coca-Cola. They own everything, the factories, the bottling plants, and that costs an absolute fortune to maintain. But then, on the right, you have Red Bull. By letting someone else handle all the production, they free up a ton of cash to focus like a laser on the one thing they truly care about, the brand. And the results of this are just staggering. Get this, it's estimated that Red Bull plows a mind-blowing 30 to 40% of its revenue right back into marketing. For any other company, that money would be locked up in just keeping the factories running. For Red Bull, it's a war chest for global domination. So you see, this model gives them these incredible, almost unfair advantages. They've got billions free for marketing. They can expand into a new country practically overnight just by finding a local partner. If a factory breaks down, hey, that's their partner's problem, not theirs. It lets them have a total obsessive focus on building the brand. Okay, so with all that extra cash and that intense focus, what has Red Bull actually built? Well, it's not a manufacturing empire, that's for sure. It's a media empire. And this is the company's true product. Meet Red Bull Media House. And I want to be super clear here. This is not some marketing department that makes a few commercials on the side. No way. This is a full-blown global media company. It's a production studio, a publisher. They create content that seriously rivals major Hollywood studios and big TV networks. I mean, just look at what they churn out. We're talking award-winning documentaries that you can find on Netflix, a global magazine called the Red Bulletin. They have their own streaming service, Red Bull TV, not to mention thousands and thousands of hours of incredible content all over YouTube. They are, in every possible sense, a publisher. And if you need one single moment that perfectly proves this whole strategy, look no further than the Red Bull Stratos mission from 2012. This was not an ad campaign. This was a global event, a scientific human spectacle, financed, produced, and controlled from top to bottom by Red Bull. The jump shattered live streaming records and was the biggest story in the world for weeks. And here's the kicker. The media value they got from it was estimated to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a return on investment that no 30-second Super Bowl ad could ever dream of touching. They literally made Red Bull Gives You Wings a reality. There's this quote that just perfectly, beautifully captures the entire business model. The drink, which is super profitable, is just the fuel. But the real engine of the company, that's the content. So why does all of this work so incredibly well? It's because Red Bull isn't really selling you a product. They're selling you an identity. They have completely mastered the art of marketing aspiration. This table just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at what a traditional company owns. Factories, distribution trucks. Now look at Red Bull. They own media rights. They own entire events. They don't just put their logo on a Formula One car. They own 2 whole teams. They don't just pay a celebrity to hold a can. They develop over 800 athletes from the ground up. They're building assets that create culture.
And that, right there, is the magic trick. See, a normal ad interrupts the thing you actually want to watch. Red Bull is the thing you want to watch. Whether it's a crazy mountain bike competition or a documentary about an up-and-coming artist, they create the very culture their audience is desperate to be a part of.
But what happens next? After the passing of its visionary founder in 2022, the empire is facing some new challenges. How do you keep that unique, risk-taking culture alive? And look, the model's not bulletproof. For one thing, being totally dependent on other companies to make your product is a huge risk. There's also the chance that people just get tired of the brand if the content quality ever slips. And, of course, the energy drink industry itself is always under the microscope, which could threaten the very fuel that runs this whole media engine.
So what's the game plan? How do they keep this thing flying high? Well, the path forward seems pretty clear. They've got to go deeper into digital spaces like esports. They need to keep creating new types of drinks to keep up with health trends. And maybe most important of all, they have to keep that culture of audacity alive. They have to find the next Stratos. So when you put it all together, it's crystal clear. The real genius of Red Bull was never about the mix of caffeine and sugar in a can. It was about completely blowing up the old rules and reimagining what a brand could be, what it could do, and what it could own.
Which leaves us with this huge, fascinating question for the future. Red Bull proved that a company that sells a drink can actually be a publisher, a creator, a genuine cultural force. So is this the new playbook? Will the brands that win in the future be the ones who stop interrupting what we watch and just become what we watch? I'd love to know what you think.